Hey guys, welcome back to the Speaker's Edge podcast, the podcast dedicated to helping you to learn from some of the world's very best speakers and communicators so that you can learn to master your message and inspire your audience every single time you speak. You can take all of the shortcuts you can take that work, learn from some of the world's best speakers so you don't need to work it all out for yourself. That's really the purpose of the podcast. We've had some great experts on the show over the last 6 months, lots and lots of great experts. If you haven't caught the previous episodes, I highly recommend you go back and listen to some of them because there's so much great stuff. But over the next few episodes, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to model how you can implement some of the great things that we've learned from some of those speakers. Before we get to that though, if you haven't downloaded the companion resources for the show, you can go to maxwellleadership.com/The Speaker's Edge and download those. And if you like the show, we would love it if you rate and review the show as well. All right then, before we start, because I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team, if you're interested in becoming a coach, a speaker, or a trainer, I highly recommend that you check out the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team. If you're interested in developing your speaking, I always say it is a complete no-brainer, at least to check it out. We've been working on the Maxwell method of speaking since 2010. There's nearly 60,000 coaches worldwide in 168 different countries. It's a fantastic program, as I say, particularly if you want to develop your speaking. So just go to maxwellleadership.com/speak and find out, no obligation, a little bit about the program. All right, so I want to talk a little bit now about your superpower, really, when you speak and what we can learn from some of the experts that we've had on. And today I think we'll start with John Maxwell because he's got so much great material. So how do you take some of John's material, some of John's lessons, and we'll talk about leadership because John is the world's #1 leadership guru, isn't he? He's produced more leadership material than anyone else in history. He's a best-selling leadership author. In fact, he's #1 and he's sold more books than numbers 2, 3, 4, and 5 all combined, apparently. So, he's the real deal. He's the real deal. So if you pick up any one of John's books, there's loads of great insights in there. And if you're a Maxwell Leadership Certified Team member, one of the great benefits of being a member is that John allows you to use some of his material. You can be licensed to teach John's material. What this means is that you can take insights that John is earning millions and millions of dollars from and has done for decades, and you can use those. You can intersperse them with your own material if you want to and bring them to life with your examples. So there's this kind of magical mix that happens when you take great content and mix it with your life experiences. So if you're a Maxwell Leadership Certified Team member, you already know this, and you're probably already using some of John's great material, and then you're mixing it with your life experiences. If you're an author, maybe you've got your own body of work. The key then is to bring your best bits to life for your audience with your life experiences. So if you've got great insights and you've got great examples to bring it to life, then you've got a good chance of holding the audience's attention. Because the bottom line is you've got to have something to say, haven't you? When you speak, you have to have something to say. But then you also need to make it interesting so that you can hold the audience's attention while you're sharing what it is you have to say. So if you think about what it is you have to say maybe is the insight that you want to share, and then making it interesting from the examples of your life, how you've learned this. That's a great question to ask yourself. Before you teach anything really, where did I learn this? Where did I learn this? And then you need to be helpful as well. So you need to be insightful, interesting, and it needs to be helpful for the audience. Then there's a good chance that you're going to hold their attention. So I want to give you an example of how important your own experiences, your own skills, knowledge, and experiences are when you're bringing to life information. So the end of this week, I'm off to Argentina. I'm going to be speaking on leadership. I'm going to be speaking on leadership, which is some of John's content, but I'm going to be doing it from my own perspective, my own leadership experiences. So I wanted to show you how those two can go together so well, your own life experiences, your own approach, your own personality, coupled with John's great information. So we'll dive into this. We'll talk a little bit about it at the end. And then next week, we'll do something similar, but a little bit different with another piece of content that, again, is going to be a great shortcut for you to really adding value to your audience. So a great quote from John Maxwell. He says, "The quickest way to change your life is to understand and live by good priorities." It's not enough just to understand the importance of prioritization. We need to understand and live by good priorities. So we need to actually implement what we know. Because there's a massive divide, isn't there? A huge gap between what we know and what we actually do. The gap between knowing and doing is vast. Because knowing is not enough. Often we mistake knowing with actually doing. We think because we know something, because we've heard it, we actually do it. And often that's not the case. So it's not enough to understand the importance of prioritization, we need to actually implement it in our lives. And if we do that, then we can change our lives. It's one of the quickest ways to change our lives, as John says. So a great question here again to follow up then is, do you live your day by appointments or by priorities? Are you living your life by the appointments that are booked with you? Are you allowing other people to book time in your life? Or are you actually asking yourself, which one of these things that I need to do is most important? Because if we choose the most important things, it's going to make a big difference, isn't it? The things that matter most then must never be at the mercy of the things that matter least. So if we've got lots of things that are urgent in front of us, but they're the things that matter least, then we need to ditch those, don't we? And focus on the most important things, the things that matter most. So when it comes to developing our potential, I think this is important because we're going to prioritize developing and growing. Because we're not going to reach our potential on our own. I think we all have infinite potential. Infinite potential, practically anything that we want to do, we can do and we can get better at. And we're never going to run out of growth. We can keep developing and growing for the rest of our life. So we've got practically infinite potential, but it's not going to develop itself. We need to do that. We have an active role, a very intentional role in developing our potential. We'll reach our height as we grow and develop as a teenager, and we reach our height, our maximum height, 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot, whatever it is. We'll reach our height automatically, but not our potential. You don't automatically reach your potential. We need to fight for that. We need to develop that. So here's a great question for you to think about. As a percentage, how much of your potential would you say you're using right now? From 0 to 100%. Write it down or hold it in mind. You know, I've asked this question of goodness knows how many people over the last 20 plus years, many different countries around the world, and the average that people come up with seems to be somewhere around 30 to 40%. Around 40%. So when you ask people by their own estimation how much of their potential are they using, they'll typically say, well, just under half. I'm not using quite half of it. I'm definitely not using all of it. I've got a lot more potential than I'm currently using. Isn't that interesting? Why do you think that is? Why would we hold back? I mean, if you think about it, who benefits if you use more of your potential? If you get better, who benefits? Right, you're going to benefit, aren't you? If I develop and grow, I'm the one that benefits most. So why would we not use all of our potential? Why would we not give the important things in life everything that we've got? If you wrote down 10 or 20 or 30%, in fact, whatever you wrote down, what difference would it make to your life if you managed to use another 10% of your potential? You tried just a little bit harder. I'm not talking about working longer hours necessarily. I'm talking about bringing maximum focus and energy to the time that you are using. Instead of holding back, giving it everything you've got while you're working. Very often we don't do this. We hold back for all kinds of different reasons. If I ask you to hold your hand up as high as you can, hold your hand up as high as you can. Very good. Now hold it up even higher. Most of us have got further than we can go, haven't we? We're holding back, and we do it in lots of different areas in our life. Now, whether or not we're really committed to something makes a big difference. John says in one of his books that no one washes a rental car. No one washes a rental car. That's good, isn't it? No one washes a rental car. Why don't we wash a rental car? Because it's not ours. There's no ownership. We can use it and abuse it somewhat, and we can take it back dirty, and that's okay. That's okay. So we don't love and cherish a rental car because it's not ours. But our own car, then we tend to treat it differently, don't we? And I think it's the same with people's ideas. As leaders, if we tell people what to do and we say, you should use my idea here and do this, there's no ownership. So that's one of the reasons I think that people hold back. Whereas if we can allow people to use their own ideas, all things being equal, of course, then they're going to try much harder to make their ideas work. They're much more committed to their ideas than they are to somebody else's. Now, when it comes to leadership within a large organization, you think about the largest expenses. Now, when it comes to leadership and the people within an organization, particularly a large organization, what's the biggest expense for most organizations, most companies, most businesses? It's people, isn't it? People are normally one of the largest expenses for an organization. So they're also potentially one of the best assets, most important assets of the organization, but only if they're led well. You see, too often people are holding back and they're doing the bare minimum they can to get by. Years ago, we had this wonderful cartoon on the wall in a bank on the wall where I worked. And it was a picture of a guy sitting with his feet up, taking it easy. And the boss man was standing behind him, towering over him, saying, "Why aren't you working?" And the bubble coming out of the speech bubble coming out of the guy's mouth was, "Well, because I didn't see you coming. I didn't see you coming. If I saw you coming, of course I'd be working." Or at least I'd be pretending to work like everyone else, but I didn't see you, so I'm busted. You caught me. And that all too often is the case, isn't it? As long as someone's watching, then we're pretending to work, or maybe we are working, but as soon as they're not watching, then we're not. So you could say it's not necessarily, if you're a leader, particularly if you're a very positional leader, and you're relying on your authority from your position to motivate your team into action, while you're watching them, while you're measuring what they're doing, then maybe they're working. But it's not what your team does while you're there that really counts. It's what they do when you're not there, isn't it? That's what really matters. So in a typical organization, and I've worked in some of the biggest organizations in the world over the years, I think this is very common. It's very common because there's lots of positional leaders, people who just have a title and they think that's leadership, and people then have to do what they tell them to do. And so they make an effort at that while people are watching, but when they're not watching, then they work on their resume, or they do something else, or they do something they want to do. They're not giving it everything they've got. Now, if that's an approach, and I've done this in the past, and if you're honest, probably you've had jobs where you have as well. If I'm holding back in a role, who loses if I do that? If I'm not doing my best, if I'm not using all of my potential, if I'm not trying my hardest and giving it my all while I'm working, who loses? Well, the company loses, don't they? The company definitely loses because they're not getting the best out of me. They're paying me, but I'm not giving them everything I've got. My boss probably looks foolish. She might not get a promotion if she can't get the best out of her team, and me being one of her team. So my boss probably loses. Our customers lose because they're probably paying more than they would need to if everyone was really trying their hardest, if I was doing more. But most of all, I'm the biggest loser in that scenario because I stand to gain most from trying my best, from giving it my all, from being the best I can be. So if I hold back, my company loses, my boss loses, the company's customers lose, but most importantly, I'm cheating myself out of my growth, because life really is growth, isn't it? Now, if you contrast that to if I give it my all, if I give it my best, while I'm at work, I give it my very best, I do the best I can while I'm there. If I do that, who wins? Well, my company wins. And you say, well, why should they win? Well, they win, they're paying you, you give them your best, they win. Your boss wins. Well, why should she get a promotion? That's her role, isn't it? So she does well. The customers do better because there's a lower cost in producing whatever it is that the company sells, the value that they provide. But most of all, me. If I do my best, I'm the one that is the biggest winner. So as a leader, if we can find a way to get the best out of our team, then everyone wins. Everyone wins. The company, you as the leader, and the individual. And a key realization in order to do this is to realize that when you become a leader, you are in the people business. When you become a leader, you're in the people business, because really leadership is results through others, isn't it? When you're working on your own, it's just about you and what you can do and the results that you can get. But when you become a leader, now you're in the people business. Now it's about trying to get results through other people, not just yourself. And the bigger the team, if you've got 10 people that report to you, then you trying your hardest is going to make relatively little difference. But if you could get all of them to give more to their job, then it's a multiple of 10, isn't it, if there's 10 people in your team? So if you can get them to give just a little bit more, it makes a big difference. Many organizations have a problem with staff turnover, don't they? They can't find enough of the right people and they can't hold on to them. So people are leaving and it's a struggle. But why do people leave those organizations? People typically join organizations for the organization, but when they leave, often they're leaving the relationships within those organizations. So if we asked ourselves, well, why do people leave organizations? Well, they don't typically. They leave the relationships. They leave their line manager. They leave their boss. They leave the leadership team. So people join organizations but leave people. So if we understand as a leader we're in the people business, if we can build great relationships with our team, then it makes a big difference to staff engagement. There's a lot of great research on this. Now, the Gallup organization, I'm sure many of you have heard of, they've done a lot of research on this for many, many years. They looked at team level engagement and how it was linked to profitability. And they found that when comparing employee engagement levels, they found that the top and the bottom quartile business units and teams had a 23% difference in profitability. So if you've got like top quartile, 2 middle quartiles, and then the bottom quartile, the difference between the top quartile and the bottom quartile, there was a 23% difference in profitability in terms of engagement. So more engagement, higher profitability, basically. But what they also found, and why this is, I think, fascinating to me, is that the world's largest ongoing study of team engagement found that the variability engagement between teams within a company was nearly as great as the variability for teams across companies. Now, what that means is that from one company to another, some companies seem to have more engaged employees than others, and that leads to the profitability at 23%, as we said. But within those companies, there's also a great variance, which is practically the same between the teams. Now, what this means is it's not just as simple as some companies get it right, and all of their teams have very engaged employees. The companies that seem to be getting it right, within those companies, some of the teams are not getting it right, and some of them are. So it can't be just the company. It's not just the leadership of the organization. It's not just the policies of the organization or the organization itself. Otherwise, all of the teams would be the same, either doing really well with employee engagement or not so well. Because we've got the same kind of variance, we can see there must be something specific to each team that makes a difference to how engaged the employees are. And when they look at this, they find that it's the line manager. The line manager of each team, the leader of each team, has an enormous influence on how engaged the employees are. Isn't that interesting? Now, another survey of 25,000 employees found that approximately 39% of variability in corporate performance was attributed to employee satisfaction. So 39% corporate performance attributed to employee satisfaction. Now, that's pretty much what you'd expect, isn't it? You think, well, if the employees are more satisfied, they're probably going to work harder, and that would be reflected in corporate performance. So that makes sense. And then they found that 69% of the variability of employee satisfaction was attributable to the quality of the employee's relationship with their manager. So 69% of the 39%. So what's that? Like about 27%. So we're basically saying 27% of corporate performance is actually down to the quality of each person's relationship with their line manager. This is huge because relationship makes an enormous difference. The quality of the relationship of every individual within the organization, the quality of their relationship with their line manager makes a big difference to corporate performance. Relationship. Now, what's so fascinating about this is so easy to fix, isn't it? Once we know how important it is. And you say to yourself, well, how can relationship possibly make such a difference? Well, you imagine that when somebody joins an organization, then they are given their contractual obligations. So there's a list of things that they need to do. You need to come in at this time. You have to work this long hours, and you have to work on these days, and you have this long for lunch, and there's a whole load of things that can be documented, which is the contractual obligations of the employee. And when the employee first starts, they do their best to meet those contractual obligations, and so they probably do more than is required of them at first. They stay a little later, they come in a little earlier, they work a little harder, until they've been there a little while, and then gradually they begins to relax, and then they're doing just about meeting their contractual obligations. Not too low, otherwise it causes friction, doesn't it? It causes a problem, and then they'll probably end up being removed from the organization. But not too high, because there's no point in doing more than you're paid for, is there? No point in doing more than your contractual obligations. So people become experts at doing just about enough to get by in big organizations. Les Brown said that this was his experience when he was young, and actually I've been in this situation, and I'm sure, again, if you're honest, many of you have as well. He said, I did just enough so they wouldn't fire me, and they paid me just enough so I wouldn't quit. So that's that's a terrible situation, really, isn't it? It's like a mediocrity at best, a contract of mediocrity. So if we were to look at it as a graph, we'd see like gradually the effort peters off over time, and then people are doing just about enough to not cause any friction. They get a 3 on their annual appraisal and a cost of living increase, pay increase. They get 3 on their annual appraisal and a cost of living pay rise, and that's it. And they stay there maybe for 10 or 20 years until they retire. The best organizations, though, are able to get much more out of people. Now, remember, earlier we were saying, how much potential do we have? Is there a cap on our potential at the level of our contractual obligations? Well, no, because we've got practically infinite potential. We could give a lot more if we wanted to. Most people can give significantly more than they're giving within an organization. And the difference between our contractual obligations and that extra potential that we're digging into above and beyond our contractual obligations is called discretionary goodwill or discretionary effort. Each employee chooses whether they're going to do their best or not. They have to meet their contractual obligations, but they choose whether they're going to give more. And if they give more, everyone wins. If they don't give more, everyone loses. They don't get fired, though, because it's additional beyond their contractual obligations. They just become an average underperformer. So the best organizations are able to tap into this potential, tap into more of the discretionary goodwill, the discretionary effort of their employees, so they give more of themselves and they're happier in the process. The key is they choose to give it. So how do we create an environment where they choose to give more of themselves every single day? So each individual's relationship with their line manager is either a lid or an open doorway for more potential to be used at work. So we can say that that relationship is a lid. There's a relationship lid on the potential of each employee. And it's either open or it's closed. And it depends on the quality of that relationship. If an employee has a good relationship with their line manager, they think it's a great company to work for, and they enjoy giving more of themselves to work every day. If they don't think it's a great relationship, they think it's a terrible company to work for, and they're just basically going to leave at their own time, their own time scale. And the thing to keep in mind here is when people are not really trying their best, the star performers have always got options. They can go and leave immediately, so they'll just leave and go somewhere better. The average people, the pretty good people, they've got options, but it's going to take them longer to leave. So they're going to leave to their own timetable. Maybe it's going to take them 6 months to leave. The lowest performers, they haven't got any options. So they stay. They're disgruntled. They're unhappy. They've become experts at hiding in big organizations as just doing the bare minimum to get by. So the relationship lid is really a cap. If you imagine there's 5 people in a team and everyone's creativity, everyone's potential is held down by the relationship with a bad manager above them, that's a great deal of lost discretionary goodwill, discretionary effort. And keep in mind that the line manager also reports into somebody, so they're the same. In fact, throughout the organization, there's a whole load of relationship lids holding back the potential of the people in the organization. So then we can see that these leadership roles in the middle of the organization, they become the gateway to releasing the potential of the organization. And basically, the ability for each team leader to build healthy working relationships with the people that they manage, that they lead, is critical to releasing that potential. And it's not even really difficult, is it, when you think about it? Now, most leaders, when they start, they think of leadership as a position. So they're given a position and then they think, great, these 6 people now in my team, my direct reports, now I'm the leader, so they have to do what I tell them. So they're given a position, but the best leaders, once they're given a position, they then earn that position so that the people want to do what they want them to do, what they're asked to do. They're giving more of themselves every day. They're giving more of their discretionary goodwill every day. So we move beyond just a positional role. Number 1 is like a position. You're given a position. Now you earn it. You begin to earn it. Now, it's easy to be given a position. Anyone can be given a title. Anyone can be given a corner office. But the best leaders then win over their team by adding value to them, by building that relationship with them, from showing that they care about them. And then people choose to give more. And that's much more difficult. It's easy to just have a position. It's much more difficult to get the people really on your side, giving their best because they want to every day. That's much harder. But that's influence, really, isn't it? So we can see that it's in the interests of everyone within the organization, really, to be the best they can be. Be the best leader you can be the best employee you can be, and everyone wins. Everyone wins. So we want to influence. We want to have influence. John says that leadership is influence. If we want influence with the people in our organization, then that sits upon a connection with them, building a connection with them, building that relationship with them. Not by email, not by text, but by one emotional human being to another, taking interest in your employees, taking interest in your team members and finding out about them, building that connection. So when we look at one of his most famous books and bodies of work, the 21 Laws of Leadership, there's 21 great laws. Number 10 is the law of connection. And so if we were just going to focus in one area, some simple skills that we could train the leaders of an organization with that would help them release more of that discretionary goodwill, release the potential of the employees, it would be learning to connect with their team members. And connecting is an attitude that starts with adding value to the people in the team, not just telling them what you want them to do. At the end of the day, the people choose whether they're going to give more. And before they choose to do that, they've got 3 simple questions that they want to know the answer to. Do you care for me? Can you help me? And can I trust you? Can I trust you? If the people in an organization feel like their line manager cares for them, feels like their line manager can help them, feels like they can trust their line manager, then they feel like they can trust the company and it's a good company to work for, and they're much more likely then to give more every day and enjoy it more in the process. If they don't, then they're going to become experts at hiding in most organizations. So that's a simple example of some of John's content on leadership and particularly connection from the 21 Laws of Leadership. And I've taken it from my perspective and my time working in big organizations and some of the challenges that I've seen, which is basically most leaders in big organizations are positional leaders. So they feel like they've got the title and therefore people have to do what they say. And to some extent they do, albeit reluctantly. But when they're not paying attention, those people are doing what they want to do. Maybe that's something related to the job. Maybe it's looking for another job. Maybe it's their passion, or maybe they're just like killing time, chatting with other people and complaining about how bad the company is. The best organizations are able to get much more out of their people, and it starts with that relationship. I love this because I've seen firsthand what a difference it makes when you work on the relationship with the people in your team. Now, most new leaders, they don't feel comfortable building a relationship with their team because they don't know how to do that. And so if you can give them a simple strategy, a structure, a curriculum to build that relationship, then everyone can do it. And the results are truly incredible. Okay, that's it for this week. We'll build on this a little further next week with another example. Until then, don't forget to download our companion guide. Just go to maxwellleadership.com/The Speaker's Edge. And remember, communication is a learnable skill. And whether it's in leadership, as we were looking at, or just in life generally, or as a speaker and communicator particularly, you really can learn to master your message and inspire your audience by connecting with them. So it's a simple skill. It only works though if you spend time developing that skill and getting better and better at that particular skill. Thanks for listening today. I'll see you next week in the next episode. Take care. Lots of love. Bye-bye. God bless.